Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Emily Bush. I'm the Senior Stakeholder Advisor at Civic Influencers. Today, you'll be hearing from our CEO, Maxim Thorne, and Chief of Organizing, Advocacy, and Learning, Patrick Coakley. Excuse me. National Organizer, Liam Hishlin, and our statewide organizers in swing states. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, which you can find by clicking on the speech bubble icon at the bottom of your screen. We may answer your questions in the chat or invite you to come off of mute during the Q&A portion later in the town hall. To kick things off, excuse me, I'm opening up with 2 poll questions that we'd appreciate you all to weigh in on. Do you think young people's voter turnout in the 2022 midterm elections was higher, the same, or lower than in the 2018 midterm elections? You will find out the answer shortly. For our second question, what top issue do you think drove young people to vote? You can select your answer now. Thank you so much for answering those questions. Now I would like to introduce Civic Influencers CEO, Maxim Thorne.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on if you're in California or New York, or in all the states in between. I am so thrilled to have you join us today because today is a beautiful day. It's a day that we have been promising you as an optimistic day. And I'd first like to share this with you. At Civic Influencers, we recognize the passion that young people have on the issues they care about.
It's really important that young people get the opportunity to learn that they can connect the things they care about, their core values, to voting.
It's not focusing on a particular candidate or a particular race. It's focusing on issues.
It actually creates a habit that lasts a lifetime, is this understanding and awareness of the role we all play and the responsibility we each have to keep our democracy strong.
If you teach a student to vote when they are 18, they will continue to vote for the rest of their lives.
I feel like so often the youth is left out of the conversation, and we are the ones with the power and we are the future. So I think the work of this organization is so impactful and so needed in regards to moving us as a country forward, because the youth, again, we have the power to swing an election.
Your work is ultimately about the protection of our democracy, and your strategy to engage in peer-to-peer communication in targeted areas is going to be difference-making.
Civic Influencers is data-driven. Most organizations and almost every campaign is overlooking the community college, the trade school.
When they realize that just a handful of their friends could make all the difference in an election, that gives them a lot of power.
The work that Civic Influencers does is not just important, it's critical to saving our democracy. I'm honored to stand alongside them as a partner and in solidarity with this work, and going to continue to do it here in Florida, but also across the country.
So that laser focus, that is data-driven, and our tested interventions like getting polling sites on college campuses, getting student IDs that are compliant with voter IDs.
It's so important that the young people of this country have a voice and understand what their power is in civic activation.
This organization focuses on it all year round, and so I think it's so integral in regards to moving this work forward to really focus on it year round. So I just think Civic Influencers has a great approach.
This nonpartisan, nonprofit organization can really play a role in engaging and inspiring young people to help save our democracy.
What we do is we recognize that 4 million 17-year-olds become 18 every year. That means a whole generation, 4 million young people become voters every year. That is our future, and that's why we are doing what we're doing. And millions of them voted yesterday. Thank you for joining us. We have been on this journey together to co-create our democracy, and particularly to give young people a democracy to inherit that is better than the one that we've built so far. And you have all helped us do it. Thank you to our board. Thank you to our donors. Thank you to the hundreds of civic influencers that we fund, our boots on campuses across the country. Thank you to our staff that you will meet today, who have been working tirelessly year-round to organize and mentor young people on these college campuses, but in a very unique way. Starting in June of last year, this organization pivoted to a data-driven approach, and we are reaping the benefits, and I would dare say the country is reaping the benefits of that laser focus on swing districts and states where young people are a major part of the population. And with tested interventions that we know work, like getting polling sites on college campuses, like making sure that they understand who the candidates are, like making sure that their student IDs are compliant with voter IDs and a host of other things. And we've done that. And we have outperformed, I would say. And I think the country is better for it because of the work that our team and you have done together. You're going to hear today about some of the innovations and some of the results of those targeted districts. We've shown you maps in the past with these circles, right? These were the districts that we identified, that young people could make all of the difference. And we identified state races that young people could make all of the difference. And they did. They did it disproportionately. And that is why we are here today, giving you some highlights of what we've achieved and what we can hope for in the future. We also, of course, know that we may have yet another Georgia runoff. And so we need you to continue to invest in this work month after month and year round through to 2024. There are three things I would like to mention that I think is so important about the election that we just came through. The first, of course, is Dobbs. The second, deniers. And the third is democracy. Young people reacted, young men and young women reacted to the Dobbs decision. They reacted to the horrible things that we saw on January 6th of last year. Election deniers, the big lie. And they reacted to the call of democracy. Dobbs, deniers, and democracy. And they really, really turned out. We have seen on average in this country, a 12% youth vote share on average. But in our districts, it is way more than 12%. And you will hear how young people outperformed over 100%, over 200%, over 300% over previous elections. It is incredible, and you and I and us should celebrate this moment. To start us off on this journey, this innovation, this approach that will save our democracy and make it better in the future, let me introduce Patrick Coakley, who is our Chief of Organizing, Advocacy, and Learning. And he has been overseeing the deployment of our statewide organizers in key swing states and districts, and an incredible team of passionate organizers throughout the country. Patrick.
Thank you, Maxim. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Coakley, and I am the Chief of Organizing, Advocacy, and Learning at Civic Influencers. And before we even get too far down the road, I want to first just thank all of our supporters and stakeholders that have really been walking with us as we've been on this journey. This term and the year of 2022 have been very exciting. A lot has been going on, but a lot of the success that we have found wouldn't have happened without the support of all of the stakeholders that believe in civic influencers. One of the interesting things about working with young people is that you're not only sort of changing their mentality about what they can do you're also showing them that there's a community in which they can exist, be themselves, and also bring about positive change. So every time someone has either lent funds, lent their time, lent their expertise to the organization, we've been able to further build that community for the young people and make it so that when they do take advantage of their civic power and understand how to raise their civic voice, it will be something that isn't a one-time thing, a one-shot deal, but something instead that they will then take with them for the rest of their lives and continue to build that sense of engagement and community. Now, like I said, 2022 has been super exciting. Not only did we conduct our first summer term, meaning that in the summer, rather than sort of taking a year, the time off, we took the time on and really worked with young people in order to give them more educational opportunities and give them more knowledge about how to do civic engagement. We also were preparing them for the midterm elections. Now, right now in our fall term, we're in the midst of the largest term that we've had so far, with 284 civic influencers participating. And it's just super exciting to keep them on board. Now, we have anecdotal data from our boots on the ground on campuses, our civic influencers, and all of the folks that have been working in our states about what happened during the election yesterday. And here are some things that we know so far. Now, first, obviously, some places have been called and some places have not. There's still some races that are in contention, too close to call, or will even be going into runoffs. But a couple things we do know, and one very important thing we know, is that young people turned out in record numbers, and especially in many places. And I think even in Wisconsin, they're reporting that youth voter turnout was more than 300% over the last election. I want to say that youth voter turnout was more than 300% over the last election. Remember, this was a generation that up until about a month ago, we were sort of the only folks out there saying that, young people do care about their communities. Young people are not apathetic. If we give them the tools and resources, they will come to bear and they will change our community. They will save our democracy. And I think last night we saw some real examples of what that engagement means and how much they care. I think another interesting piece was that we also saw Maxwell Frost, the first Gen Z member of Congress, win his race. And interestingly enough, we also gave him the Civic Influencers Power Award this past summer, this past fall. Really a testament, again, to young people caring about their democracy and wanting to be involved. Now, we're going to continue to work through Friday and through any other runoffs or engagement that will take place and make sure that young people are continuing to understand how to access their civic power, how to continue taking their role in voting, and make sure that they are just ready to really be positive agents of that community change. Now, I also want to share with you some of the initial results from an action that we did just leading up to the election. For the first time, in order to make sure that young people had all of the tools that they needed to register to vote, we actually embarked on a text and phone banking program. This was to make sure that we could reach young people where they were on their cell phones and really make sure that they understood what steps they needed to take in order to be registered, as well as find the information on how to participate in their local districts. With that, I'm pleased to introduce you to Liam Hischelin, our national coordinator, who's going to talk a little bit about the texting and phone banking process that we took on. Liam?
Hi, everyone. First off, I want to say good morning, good afternoon. I know it can be hard to come across, but thank you so much. So I just want to thank you all for being on here, for being such incredible supporters of our work. I hope you all know that we couldn't do it without you all. So my name is Liam Hischelin, and I'm the national organizer at Civic Influencers. In addition to having the tremendous honor of working with a great team of statewide organizers who you're about to hear from, and hundreds of civic influencers across the country, I also helped launch our first ever GOTV text banking and phone banking effort to ensure that we left nothing to chance when it came to providing young people with the resources, tools that they needed this election cycle. Thanks to our civic influencers and countless volunteers, which I am seeing countless volunteers on the screen, we're able to conduct 10 major text banking campaigns where nearly 200 volunteers sent almost 150,000 texts. And these are texts to the amazing young people who went out and voted last night, many of them really showing that they believed and wanted to strengthen this democracy. That is amazing. Here at Civic Influencers, we are a data-driven organization, and our team of data scientists are helping us to mobilize the margins by not only showing us what districts will have the highest impact when it comes to youth voter turnout, but also what strategies will be the most effective for mobilizing these voters. It's because of this approach that we expanded our efforts to include both text banking and phone banking this fall. As an organization that relies on data, it was imperative for us that we did not want to leave anything to chance, but we also need to test to make sure that our approaches were working. And we were unclear at first if young people would even pick up the phone and answer our text back. But as we started phone banking last week, many of the volunteers expressed being surprised. They wrote that in the notes, they emailed us back by how many young people answered the phone. One of our incredible volunteers, Beth Ruck, thank you, Beth, if you're on this call. Not only had a young person in Pennsylvania answer the phone, but through their conversation, Beth was able to get on her computer, help this person look up their polling location, talk them through how to find information, and really from our conversation said to me that she felt like this helped that person be an informed voter and actually go out and cast their vote. It is this kind of deep organizing that is critical to the work that we are doing and to making sure we're empowering these young people. Again, I want to thank you all for being such important and necessary supporters, advocates, and champions of our work. And Patrick, I'm handing it back to you to introduce our incredible statewide organizers.
Hey, thank you so much, Liam. And I mean, what a great story. It really shows how, we've continued to learn that one-on-one engagement really does make a difference for working with young people. So yesterday was definitely exciting, and we're all still receiving videos and images from the young people who came out to make their voices heard. In fact, I want to take just a moment to share a wonderful video that's actually right from our social media feed. I'm going to share my screen with y'all here for a moment. And you can sort of see something that was going on from our state organizer in Pennsylvania.
In Ohio, and we're out here at Pennsylvania State University today. Hi, my name is JC, and I'm the organizer at large for Pennsylvania and Ohio, and we're out here at Pennsylvania State University today, reminding students to vote. We have a polling location right inside this building. And yeah, out here with Liz and a couple of other of our civic influencers, and we're just excited to be out here and talk to students.
Yeah, we are out here today making sure that young people vote. 18 to 29-year-olds make up the largest voting bloc in this election. There's so many things on the ballot, so if you haven't yet, make sure you get out your vote. And do not forget to vote.
That's so awesome. And so I'm pleased to actually say that our Pennsylvania State Organizer at Large, JC Brown, is actually here with us this afternoon, and want to welcome her to the conversation. JC, 2 questions. The first off, where's my donut? Because I did not forget to vote. But secondly, what was the issue that was on the minds of the engaged young people that you were working with yesterday?
Yeah, Patrick, sorry about the donut. They were pretty tasty too. But hello, everyone. My name is JC Brown, and I'm the organizer at large in Pennsylvania. Yesterday, I was at Penn State University, and I had an awesome time getting to meet and table with some of my fellows at Penn State University. And as you saw in the video, we were tabling right outside of a campus polling location, which was pretty busy. Students were excited to vote. And Patrick, for your question, as you already know, there is a huge list of issues for young voters. But as I interacted with students yesterday, abortion access was a consistent topic in our conversations. Pennsylvania is unique in that it's an access state, and we saw an influx of patients coming from out of state to seek care post the Dobbs decision. So more and more young people are recognizing the intersectionality of these issues like abortion access and how these policies disproportionately affect marginalized communities. And so young people knew that reproductive care was on the ballot this election, and the results would determine the preservation or demise of reproductive rights in Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh, that's super exciting. I think there were also some really important firsts that took place in Pennsylvania yesterday too, as well, yeah?
Yes, a lot of history was made. Pennsylvania elected its first Black woman to Congress, Summer Lee. We also now have our first Black Lieutenant Governor, Austin Davis. And even in our state legislature, 2 members of the LGBTQ+ community, Latasha Mays and Jessica Benham, were elected to serve as state representatives. This diversity is major. We know that having more voices represented is needed and positively impacts policy decision. And also seeing diversity in candidates also makes young people more encouraged to go vote because they see themselves in the pool of candidates. So there's a lot of history made and a lot of celebration to be had.
Indeed. Thank you so much, JC. Texas also continues to be a space in transition. Jocelyn Hilburn, our state organizer in Texas, is here with us as well. And Jocelyn, you've been following a lot of the youth engagement that's been taking place even since the last election cycle. What's driving the young people in, what's driving this talented group of young people who care about their community to be engaged in Texas?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Patrick, and hello, everyone. I'm Jocelyn. I'm the statewide organizer in Texas. So our young people in Texas, they are super capable and amazing and dedicated. And what is driving them is a multitude of things that is impacting them from many different ways that they couldn't have ever imagined. So one of the things that, it seems to be really popular, not just in Texas, but across the state, is the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So our Texans have show up in so many numbers to express their concern and support for reproductive rights, and they are fighting the abortion ban in Texas. More so as a young person in Texas and as someone who knows many other young Texans, we have experienced way too many public and school shootings that we shouldn't have. And with the more recent school shooting in Uvalde, they have proven to be dedicated to gun reform in their home state and for creating change for future generations. And although there is no red wave in Texas, there are many seats still open and many have been gained. So that is exciting to see as it comes in. And although Texas is still struggling with voter suppression efforts, there is the capacity for real change in Texas that our young folks are creating for the future.
That's so exciting. And I'm so excited for the work that you continue to do there on the ground as we see all of that change come to a state that I think we never really expected to change that much. Michael Norris continues to be our stable hand in Florida, a state whose name has sort of become synonymous with some radical ideas. Mike, what's taking place in Florida and how are young people using their civic power there?
Thank you, Patrick, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today. I am Mike Norris, and I am the organizer in Florida. Florida continues to be a place where anything can happen and nothing should surprise us. Yesterday in Florida was a day of both some highlights and some horrors. I personally was able to be on 3 college and university campuses in Tallahassee, the state capital. I was at Florida State University, as well as Florida A&M University, one of our historically Black colleges and universities. Both of those 2 institutions are fortunate enough to have on-campus polling locations. And on those campuses, I was able to see and talk to and experience so much enthusiasm from young people who are excited to participate in democracy, excited to vote. I was also on the campus of Tallahassee Community College. Community colleges have been a huge focus at Civic Influencers. And at Tallahassee Community College, there is no on-campus polling location, which is why that community colleges and on-campus locations are going to become a real priority for Civic Influencers moving towards 2024. The issues that were driving young people in Florida yesterday largely arise from the governor's legislative agenda, like the Don't Say Gay bill and the Stop Woke Act. The other issue on the minds of young people in Florida continues to be gun control. And it's actually that issue which I think kind of enabled our greatest highlight of the day. 25-year-old Maxwell Frost won his election yesterday to become the youngest member and the first Gen Z member of Congress. Maxwell's election was the ray of sunshine in an otherwise gloomy day in Florida. The horror of the day was kind of the realization that Miami-Dade County, which had been dependably stable for a long time, has taken a swing in a different direction. And it's going to take a significant effort to swing that county back in the other direction. Patrick, the best part of my job is that I love the conversation I get to have with the brightest and best young people in Florida, many of which want to continue to be civic influencers because of the generosity of the people on this call today. So thank you for your support. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. I'm very, very grateful.
Thanks a bunch, Mike. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the engagement with historically Black colleges and universities, because also North Carolina has seen some of the most significant student action at these schools, also known as HBCUs, as well as with the other majority institutions where their students have been demanding classes to be closed on election days, as well as asking for greater flexibility to utilize their civic power. Our North Carolina organizer, Anna Cubbage, is here with us. Anna, I know you were also on the ground yesterday. So tell us a little bit about the change that young people are demanding in North Carolina.
Thank you, Patrick. Hello, y'all. My name is Anna Cubbage, and I'm the North Carolina statewide organizer here at Civic Influencers. You had the opportunity to see and hear from some of our amazing North Carolina and South Carolina civic influencers in the video that Maxim shared earlier. More North Carolina youth were registered to vote this year than in the 2018 midterm elections. As Patrick mentioned, we are proud to work with youth civic leaders and campus advisors on the campuses of 3 North Carolina historically Black colleges and universities. Those are North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, Fayetteville State University, and Elizabeth City State University, as well as Claflin University in South Carolina. Our civic influencers are working hard to mobilize their peers, register voters, provide voter education, advocate for the issues that matter to them, and fight for systemic change, like an Election Day holiday on the campuses of UNC Asheville, UNC Chapel Hill, and Duke University, campus voting coalitions, on-campus early voting locations, and re-enfranchisement for North Carolinians formerly incarcerated for felonies. Civic influencers are civic leaders on their campuses and in their communities. Yesterday, I was on the campus of Elizabeth City State University outside their on-campus voting location, which also served as the county's only early voting site. And I witnessed the continued engagement and the work to get out the vote and that sense of community and spirit of civic engagement. We identified 2 districts in North Carolina where there was an open seat. One open seat was a seat with a Republican. In one of these districts, we worked with Elizabeth City State University, again, a historically Black university, as well as Wilson Community College. Both of these district seats were won by pro-democracy candidates because young people showed up and participated in the election.
Awesome. Anna, the work you're doing is amazing. And, I think all of you have not only spoken to the engagement that you're doing with young people, but I almost have to remind myself that this is in addition to the normal sort of day-to-day work that we do with the civic influencers, just for their own leadership and mentoring and development. Just quickly, how many civic influencers do each of you have in your cohort? JC, how many are in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I have 33 civic influencers, and they are all across the Commonwealth. I have influencers in the Philadelphia area, Pittsburgh, Scranton, and the list continues.
Indeed. Jocelyn, how many represent the Lone Star State?
In Texas, we have 47 total civic influencers, which 32 of them are students and 15 are community civic influencers, also across the Lone Star State from the Panhandle to South Texas and East and West.
Oh my. Mike, how many are in Florida?
This fall, we're working with 54 young people from the Panhandle to Miami-Dade.
Oh my goodness. And Anna, North Carolina?
We're working with 47 civic influencers across North Carolina, as well as in Orangeburg, South Carolina, on the campuses of 15 colleges and universities and in our local communities.
Indeed. And I always love to hear any positive news about my home state, especially a historically Black college like Claflin University. I am just so proud of these statewide organizers who've brought about record youth turnout in these midterms. As y'all heard from what they said, they seeded the ground for lasting change by not only training our boots on the ground on campuses, who we call civic influencers, but also all of the additional supports they give them in teaching them how to become actual community leaders. They've helped them manage 3 civic engagement activities and long-term systemic change projects. And these are things like getting polling sites on campuses, creating shuttles to the polls, making sure that their student IDs can work in voting places, texting their peers, sharing information, and getting out to vote. It's just really exciting, and I am super excited for all of the work that they continue to do. And it's a pleasure to have them on the team and get a chance to like share in this wonderful responsibility with them every day. With that, I'm gonna pass it back to you, Maxim.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, JC and Michael, particularly. You're the blue dot in Florida. Our data-driven approach has reaped real rewards. And it's because of you. It's because of you, all of you in the audience here today. And I really want to tell you how much we appreciate the support and the trust that you've placed in me and in this organization. It was really difficult when we pivoted to a data-driven approach because two things that really got some folks upset. We said Ohio, for example, was not really going to be a priority. Cincinnati in that district might. And that district went for a pro-democracy candidate, in part because of our work. But Ohio seemed to have gone in a radically different direction than it had in 2008 or 12. We also said Florida would probably not be a priority state, and it wasn't, because we also saw that direction. But we did say Texas seemed like it was moving in a pro-democracy direction, and particularly because young people could really make a difference in specific districts. Texas 34, for example, which was an open district, went for a pro-democracy candidate. We specifically targeted these dots on our maps that you have seen because we felt, regardless of what people were saying, that the math, the calculus, our data-driven approach would identify these districts where young people could make all the difference. And they did. PA 17, which is the previous Connor Lamb district, was open. And that, if you remember, was traditionally a Republican, a red district. And we felt young people needed to show up and they could determine what happened. And a candidate won that was pro-democracy in Pennsylvania 17. And then we also identified statewide races in Pennsylvania that young people could help predict and determine the outcome. And they did, big time. We looked at Virginia 7, which has been a changing district, growing the numbers of young people at community colleges, young people at predominantly people of color serving institutions, and they turned out. And that district has a pro-democracy candidate re-elected. These are important data-driven points, and I'm so excited by what we have achieved and what we are yet to achieve if there are runoffs after this election. We are so thankful to you. And again, my request of you is that you continue the momentum. You continue investing in this approach and this work. It does not finish the day after the election of November 8th. It will continue through December and through next year and through 2024's presidential election. Our strategy was based on choosing districts that we could mobilize at those margins, but in priority states that would be swing states in the presidential election in 2024. So we got a double win in the midterms of 2022, but that would build momentum to 2024. So please renew your gifts to us. Your donations make this possible, made the exponential increase in civic influencers working on these campuses. When you heard those numbers of civic influencers that each of our statewide organizers were organizing in each state, just keep multiplying that by 2,500 a stipend. Each of those numbers were over 100,000, 100,000. That's not including the texting platform. That's not including the yard signs. And thank you so much, Jim, for funding that for us. Thank you, Rabbi Jan. You know, Rabbi Jan texted me this morning. And I just want to close with this before we go into the question and answer period. She said to me that today is the anniversary of Chris, I don't speak German, but Kristallnacht. which is a day that holds personal and collective trauma for Jews. And she says, I don't even want to imagine how that specter would have loomed had the red wave materialized. It hasn't. But I also want to say to you, Jan, this generation, Gen Z, doesn't think in binaries of red or blue. It's the whole ocean. This generation has fluid identities and they're moved by multiple passions. That is what we've been saying. This is not an apathetic generation. This is a generation that is voting their beliefs and their passions. And we saw that yesterday, and we will see that again if you continue to invest in our work. And now I open for questions. Rachel.
Yes, thank you, Maxim. We actually have a few questions. I'm going to start with the chat, and then I'll move to the other comments that I've been getting. So our first question is from Richard Albert. And Richard, thank you so much for your wonderful comment. We really appreciate it. Richard's question, Maxim, is looking back on your work in the lead up to yesterday's election, how do you evaluate and assess the work that you have done in educating young people and getting them out to vote? Are you satisfied? What help could you and your team, what could have helped you and your team do more?
Right. Really great question, Richard. I wish you would come off of mic and have that conversation with me, since you're the professor at University of Texas, Austin, and on our Blue Ribbon Committee. I'm really proud of our work. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be done, and a lot to be done in Texas. The opportunities that we saw in Georgia in 2020 and realized in Georgia by the runoffs in 2021 are there in Texas today and across the country. We do need more investment. Part of our new strategy and this data-driven approach is we built in experiments to know what worked and what didn't work. Did we choose our locations correctly? And did the interventions we used work the way we thought they would work, which then enhances us to improve in the next set of elections and throughout next year in 2024. I'm incredibly proud. I will say that there's been a tectonic shift in Florida that I did not see it would be as great as it was, right? And so part of this learning approach to organizing advocacy for our organization is responding or welcoming, more than responding, but welcoming these challenges, which is why we have these intergenerational conversations with boomers and with Gen Z. We have a generation that loves to send postcards, and that's wonderful. We also have a generation who wants to talk by text and wants to talk by TikTok and Snapchat. And so we have been refining our strategy. So there was a past in this organization where we would print voter guides. Now we are doing voter guides via Snapchat and TikTok and various kinds of social media outlets, and finding ways to communicate that fit within how young people communicate, right? Meeting them where they are. All of those are still ongoing learning. But am I happy today? You better believe it. Should you be happy today? You better believe it. And Richard and everyone else, like Reggie, thank you for helping us in Texas. Our event in Texas that you came to and you helped promote was so invaluable in seeding and building momentum in Texas that we are still going to see benefits from. And similarly, Monica and Marcia, the work you helped us do in Atlanta and in Florida and in Virginia and in Michigan is paying off. We don't have all the results yet, but it's because of the kind of investments you have made that allows us to be happy today. And I hope you're feeling this happiness. Rachel.
Thanks, Maxim. So we actually have two questions, both in the chat. One, the same question from Roberta and the same question from Ashley Jacobs. So If there is a runoff in Georgia, what is our plan and how can folks get involved?
My prediction is there probably will be a runoff in Georgia. So let me tell you what I was involved with 2 years ago when there was a runoff in Georgia. And we can learn from that and do better than we did. What we learned was that young people and young Black people in particular do not fall off a cliff in a runoff. And we have seen the increased engagement by young people in Georgia and across the country. What we also found is that we have to micro-target, right? We have to build on relational organizing. You cannot parachute in like other folks try to do and expect to change anything and have people trust you. We have been building up these relationships with community colleges, with trade schools. You heard in that video, Vivian Pollock saying, most campaigns and organizations just dismiss, ignore students at community colleges and trade schools. We don't. We center those young people. And we build those relationships in such a way. Marcia just told me, Georgia is going to a runoff. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to micro-target young people in the state of Georgia, at trade schools, at community colleges, at historically Black colleges and universities, at Hispanic serving institutions. You know, Patrick, our chief of advocacy and learning and organizing, is on the President's Commission on HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. By mobilizing young people the way that we did in January of 2021, in January of 2023, will reap rewards because young people have shown their values and their ability to connect the issues they care about with voting. We need to ramp up, not slow down, ramp up through the runoffs in Georgia, and then continue that building and building with community colleges, with trade schools and other institutions to get us to where we need to go so that our young people will not only save this democracy, but inherit and create a better one. Thanks, Marcia, for that question.
And thank you everyone in the chat who is letting us just now know as we're talking to you that the runoff has been confirmed. So we are on it. Next question from an anonymous attendee. Will Civic Influencers collect and publish the data on youth vote and share it for 2022? Yes, and yes. So we posted an op-ed on Medium yesterday. We have been actually trying to debunk the false narratives that we've been hearing forever. Young people are apathetic. Our data, which we have published on our website, says young people are so far off that they are not apathetic. What we said is we need to help them connect the issues they care about to voting. And they have, and they have, and they have. We also said that we need to be able to amplify their voices. Representation matters. When we gave our Cool to Consciousness Power Award to Maxwell Frost, who's just been elected in Florida 10, the old Val Demings seat, you can see in him a reflection on a young person's journey in our democracy, not just to register and to vote, but then see yourself as the person to be elected. And he represents that journey. It's not a partisan, it's a model. It's a model for young people to own this democracy. And so what we want to do is change this narrative, publish our results. We need a publisher. We can publish on our website. We need your help. We need your help to get us on national and local media platforms, because we keep hearing, which might depend on wrong, pundits who are stuck in binaries of red and blue, as opposed to an ocean, red and blue waves as opposed to the flow of the ocean. We keep hearing about young people's apathy, which we know is not true. They're very passionate. At the same time, people are talking about apathy, they're saying, oh, we have a cancel culture. If people are canceling other people, they're not being apathetic, they're being pretty passionate. Our work is so important, and the more we get it published, but also the more you invest in us, the more we can do
to share the information. A lot of it is anecdotal, but some of it is way beyond anecdotal. We have proofs, and we certainly have proofs from this election that needs to be studied. A week from now, we're having a follow-up of this discussion with more data. So it's more rigorous, and that will be on, I think it's on the 16th, right, Rachel?
We're planning for the 17th.
The 17th. Please come to that. And we actually hope to get resources that allow us to publish and share this. We think the data that we have should lift all boats, not just the efficacy of the work that Patrick and our teams are doing on campuses, but we want other people to realize this works. This works. And the fate of our democracy rests with Gen Z. And all of the naysayers about Gen Z are wrong. Gen Z showed up in a way that my generation did not show up. And I think your generation may not have shown up either. Gen Z are showing that they have the power. They understand their power, but their power, the exercise of their power is different. It's not binary. It's not binary. It's holistic. They're not saying, I only care about the economy, stupid. No, they're saying, I care about the climate. I care about the planet. I care about all my freedoms. I care about all my identities and the people I love's identities. That is beautiful. And as frustrating as some of us might be at times, that is an amazing, amazing gift to every generation that we have Gen Z leading the way right now.
Great, thanks, Maxim. I'm watching the time, so I'm going to have just 2 more questions. We have an anonymous attendee wants to remind us again, what was the answer to our first polling question, the 2022 youth voter turnout compared to the 2018 midterm elections?
If you've heard me before at these town halls, you have to disaggregate. But here's what we know aggregating data, of the aggregate data. It is 12% of the voting share across the country were by young people. That is equivalent, slightly better than 2018. Great. So we know at minimum, it is equivalent or better than 2018. If we disaggregate, we've had spectacular young people turnout in swing states and districts, which were our focus. Patrick talked to you about Wisconsin. It is spectacular. Virginia 7, where we poured so much resources in, spectacular. Pennsylvania 17, which was J.C. Brown, you heard her, J.C., our organizer at large in Pennsylvania, overperformance. Some of the performance rates that we are getting back, and I will report more on that next week, 180% increase, 200% increase, 360% increase. That is phenomenal. But the average across the country, 12 or a little above, in terms of share of vote. What's so fabulous is when you target the way we target in swing districts and states that are going to play an important role in the 2024 presidential election, and you have that kind of performance increase, it bodes really, really well for our country. What did folks say, by the way, in answer to the question 1 in the polling question, Rachel? But did people think it was better, worse, or even?
Majority was better.
Yes, and you're right. And particularly better where we worked and where we targeted our resources.
All right, Maxim, I'm going to move us to the very last question here as time winnows down. Are you feeling optimistic about this election and young people's turnout and the potential for the turnout in 2024?
What do you think? I am incredibly optimistic. Here is what I would like all of you to help co-create. Thank you, young people. People can repeat after me. Thank you, Gen Z. Thank you, Gen Z. Thank you, Gen Z. This is not the time to thank elected leaders and so forth, right? We keep patting other folks on their backs, as opposed to the people we really should be celebrating. Gen Z has led the conversation on climate change. They have pushed us to address gun violence. They have brought to the country's forefront the challenges around student debt and these corrupt institutions like Trump University. They have made us realize how our freedoms are something we have to continually fight for, whether it is reproductive choice, whether it's marriage equality. It's young people, these multiple identities that are braided for young people, that gives us this success that we're talking about today. I'm optimistic if all of us got in this together and began embracing the vision of Gen Z, the power of Gen Z, and supporting that, as opposed to being frustrated by cell phones or social media or TikTok. We need some reverse mentoring, and we will all benefit from that. And we will all benefit from that if we do that together. And so I am incredibly optimistic, because what more evidence could we possibly need than that Gen Z matters, their vote matters, they will vote when they connect to issues with voting, and we equip them and believe in them. Now is the time to embrace them and say thank you. So I am optimistic because I know that all of the folks here today agree with me and are in this for the long haul. Jennifer, Kathleen, Katrina, Ken, hey KP, Leslie, Marcia, Maria Renee, Marianne, Melanie, Nadia, thank you for all you do for us in California and across the country. Olivia, Peter, you are tireless. And thank for all you do on Daily Kos. Kanisha, Ralph, you've been a mentor for decades, and I couldn't appreciate you more. Richard, Ralph, Roberta, thank you in New Mexico. Rosanna, Sadia, and everybody else. We need you, and Rabbi Jan, we need you, and we need you to stay with us for as long as you can. Thank you so much.
Maxim, I'm so glad you're feeling optimistic. I just wanted to thank everyone again for your support and for joining us today. And also wanted to remind folks that Giving Tuesday is right around the corner, and we hope Civic Influencers will be the nonprofit you support this holiday season. Feel free to email us if you have any outstanding questions. We will also be sending out an invitation for our next meeting on the 17th.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us, and stay in touch. You can tweet at us. You can TikTok us, Snapchat, Facebook, LinkedIn. You could text or email. We are here for you as we go through this momentous time that we are seeing the light. Maya Angelou used to say, God puts a rainbow in every cloud. We are your rainbows in these clouds over our democracy. So be with us, and thank you again for investing us.